The average American will earn approximately $2 million over their lifetime, yet 64% of this country will die with less than $10,000 to their name. That is not a statistic. That is an indictment. An indictment of a system that teaches you calculus but never compound interest, that glorifies a hustle but never explains a hierarchy, that celebrates a millionaire but conceals the mechanism. You've been told that wealth is about working harder, saving more, cutting lattes, and grinding until your body breaks down at 65 just in time to collect a pension that inflation has already devoured. But here is the brutal, paradoxical truth that the financial elite understand and that you were never meant to discover. The difference between those who build generational wealth and those who remain trapped in the paycheck-to-paycheck prison has almost nothing to do with income, intelligence, or even opportunity. It comes down to one principle, one rule, one fraction of effort that produces a disproportionate fraction of results. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The question is whether you have the discipline to act on it, or whether you will scroll to the next video and remain exactly where you are. My name is Godwin. Today, I am dismantling the mythology of personal finance and reconstructing it around the only principle that actually moves the needle, the 1% rule. This is not motivational fluff. This is not another video telling you to budget better or open a savings account. This is a surgical examination of the asymmetric actions that separate the financially free from the financially enslaved. If you are tired of surface-level content designed to make you feel productive without actually producing results, if you want the kind of financial clarity that most people pay thousands to consultants to hear, then you may want to join this network by subscribing. This channel exists for those who demand more. Let us begin. The 1% rule is not about doing 1% more work. It is about identifying the 1% of financial behaviors that generate 99% of wealth outcomes. This is the Pareto principle applied with surgical precision to your money. Most people operate under the delusion that financial success is democratic, that every action carries equal weight, that if you just do enough things correctly, prosperity will eventually arrive. This is a lie. The truth is aristocratic. A tiny minority of decisions, habits, and mental frameworks produce almost all of your financial trajectory. Everything else is noise. And the American system is designed to keep you focused on the noise. You are trained to obsess over cutting expenses when the real leverage exists in expanding income. You are conditioned to fear the IRS when the wealthy use the tax code as a wealth-building tool. You are programmed to chase linear income from a 9-to-5 when the 1% build systems that generate exponential returns while they sleep. The game is not rigged in the way you think. It is rigged in a more elegant, more insidious way. The rules are technically available to everyone, but the understanding of which rules matter is hoarded by the few. Let me illustrate with something every American worker encounters. The 401k. On the surface, this appears to be a gift from the government, a tax-advantaged retirement vehicle designed to help you build wealth. And it is. But here is what the surface-level financial advice never tells you. The 401k was never designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make you compliant. It was introduced in 1978 as a supplement to pensions, but corporations quickly realized they could eliminate pensions entirely and shift all retirement risk onto the employee. The 401k is structured to keep you tethered to your employer, to keep you showing up for 40 years, to keep you psychologically dependent on a system that extracts your prime years in exchange for the hope of eventual freedom. The 1% rule in this context is understanding that the 401k is a tool, not a strategy. The wealthy do not rely on their 401k. They maximize the employer match because that is free money, a guaranteed 100% return, and then they redirect every additional dollar into vehicles that offer control, liquidity, and asymmetric upside. The average American puts everything into the 401k, locks away until 59 and a half, pays penalties for early access, and prays the market cooperates. The financially sophisticated use the 401k for what it is, capture the match, and then deploy capital into Roth IRA for tax-free growth, into brokerage accounts for flexibility, into assets that generate income today, not in 4 decades. This distinction, this 1% shift in strategy, compounds into hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. But you were never taught this. You were taught to maximize your contribution, to trust the system, to wait, Now consider the Roth IRA, perhaps the most elegant wealth-building tool in the U.S. tax code, and yet chronically underutilized by those who need it most. The Roth allows you to contribute after-tax dollars today and withdraw everything, including all gains, completely tax-free in retirement. In a nation where tax rates are historically low and national debt is historically high, where the Federal Reserve has printed more dollars in the last few years than in the previous century combined, where the probability of higher future taxes approaches certainty, the Roth IRA is not just advantageous, it is essential. Yet most Americans either do not contribute at all or contribute the minimum. They prioritize consumption today over compounding tomorrow. They fail to understand that a dollar invested in a Roth at 25 becomes approximately $15 at 65, assuming average market returns. $15 of tax-free money. The 1% action here is automating your Roth contribution, not thinking about it, not deciding each month, automating it on the first of every month. So the decision is removed from your hands. This is a fundamental insight of behavioral finance that the wealthy intuitively understand. Willpower is finite, but systems are infinite. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. This brings us to the concept of capital allocation, a term the financial elite use casually, but that most Americans have never heard. Capital allocation is simply the decision of where to direct every dollar you earn. It sounds basic, but it is the single most consequential financial skill you will ever develop. Most people allocate capital unconsciously. Money comes in, money goes out, and whatever remains gets allocated by default, usually into a low-yield savings account that loses purchasing power every year to inflation. The Federal Reserve has a stated inflation target of 2%, but real inflation, the kind that affects housing, healthcare, and education, often runs double or triple that rate. Holding cash is not safe. It is a guaranteed loss. The 1% rule for capital allocation is this: treat every dollar as an employee. Ask yourself where this dollar can work hardest for you. Can it go into an index fund that has averaged 10% annual returns for the last century? Can it go into a skill that will increase your earning capacity? Can it go into a business that generates revenue independent of your time? The wealthy do not spend money. They deploy capital. This linguistic shift is not trivial. It represents a fundamental restructuring of how you relate to resources. When you spend, you consume. When you deploy, you invest. The 1% rule is about ruthlessly eliminating consumption that does not serve your long-term position and redirecting those dollars into deployment. But here is where the conversation must shift, because focusing only on what you do with money ignores a more fundamental question. How do you acquire more of it? This is a blind spot in most personal finance content. You are told to save, to budget, to invest, but you are rarely told to earn. The 1% rule recognizes that there is a ceiling on how much you can cut expenses, but there is no ceiling on how much you can earn. The asymmetric action is not clipping coupons. It is expanding income. And expanding income in America requires understanding the brutal hierarchy of labor. At the bottom is linear income, the 9-to-5 exchange of hours for dollars. You show up, you perform, you collect a paycheck. This is a default mode for 80% of Americans, and it is a trap, not because work is bad, but because linear income has no leverage. You cannot scale yourself. There are only so many hours in a day, and trading them all for money leaves you with no time to build anything that compounds. The 1% rule demands that you allocate time, not just money, toward building leverage. This could be learning a high-income skill that allows you to charge more per hour. It could be creating content or intellectual property that generates revenue while you sleep. It could be building a small business or acquiring equity in an existing one. The point is not what you do, but that you do something beyond linear labor. Consider the psychology of the hedonic treadmill, the phenomenon where humans rapidly adapt to improvements in circumstance and return to a baseline level of happiness. This is why the lifestyle inflation that accompanies raises and promotions never leads to lasting satisfaction. You get the promotion, you upgrade the car, you move to the nicer apartment, and within months you feel exactly the same as before, except now your expenses have increased to match your income. The wealthy understand that the hedonic treadmill is not a bug in human psychology. It is a central feature that keeps the middle class trapped. The The 1% action is consciously maintaining lifestyle stability while income grows. It is forcing the gap between earning and spending, not through deprivation, but through awareness. You can enjoy your life. You simply refuse to let every increase in income trigger an automatic increase in consumption. This gap, this delta between what you earn and what you spend, is your freedom fund. It is the capital that gets deployed into assets, into investments, into machinery of compounding that eventually replaces your need to work at all. Speaking of compounding, let us address the most underestimated force in personal finance. Einstein may or may not have called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, but whoever said it was correct. The mathematics are simple. If you invest $10,000 at 10% annual returns, in 40 years you have over $450,000. But here is the aspect that diagrams never capture. Almost all that growth occurs in the final years. For the first decade, the numbers barely move. For the second decade, they creep upward. For the third decade, they accelerate. And for the fourth decade, they explode. This is why time in the market devastates timing the market. This is why starting at 25 versus 35 is worth more than any amount of clever stock picking. The 1% rule is to begin immediately, regardless of the amount. Not because small amounts are inherently powerful, but because you are training the habit. You are establishing the neural pathways of an investor rather than a consumer. You are claiming your seat at the table before you fully understand the game. Most people wait until they have enough to invest. The wealthy invest before they have enough, because they understand that the behavior is more valuable than the amount. Now, let us address the American credit system, because your credit score is not just a number. It is a financial passport that determines access, pricing, and opportunity. A credit score of 750 versus 650 can mean the difference of over $50,000 in interest over the life of a mortgage. This is not theoretical money. This is real capital that either stays in your pocket or flows to banks. The 1% rule for credit is absurdly simple, yet ignored by millions. Pay every bill on time, keep utilization below 30%, and never close old accounts. That is it. 3 behaviors. These 3 behaviors, executed consistently, will place you in the top tier of creditworthiness within a few years. And yet most Americans do not execute them. They pay late because they lack systems. They max out cards because they lack awareness. They close accounts because they lack understanding of how the algorithm works. This is the essence of the 1% rule. The actions that matter most are rarely complex. They are simply not done. But all of this, the 401k strategy, the Roth contributions, the capital allocation, the income expansion, the credit optimization, all of it fails without the foundational element that nobody wants to discuss: identity. Your financial outcomes are a reflection of your financial identity. If you see yourself as someone who is bad with money, you will subconsciously sabotage every strategy. If you see yourself as someone who lives paycheck to paycheck, you'll find ways to spend every paycheck. The 1% rule at its deepest level is about identity architecture. It is about constructing a self-concept that is consistent with wealth. This does not mean affirmations in the mirror. It means evidence. It means taking one small action today that a wealthy person would take, and then using that action as proof that you are becoming that person. You invested $50. That is what investors do. You are an investor. You automated a savings transfer. That is what the financially disciplined do. You are financially disciplined. The compound effect applies to identity as much as to money. Small proofs accumulated over time. Rewrite who you believe yourself to be. So here is the uncomfortable question I need you to sit with. What is the 1% of your financial life that you are actively avoiding? What is the action that you know would change everything, but that you keep postponing because it is uncomfortable, because it requires confrontation, because it exposes how little you have actually done? Is it opening that investment account? Is it having that conversation about money with your spouse? Is it looking at your net worth and accepting the number without excuses? Is it cutting a relationship or habit that bleeds money? Is it asking for the raise, starting a side project, or leaving the job that is safe but dead? The 1% rule is not about doing everything. It is about doing the one thing that your current self is most afraid of doing. Because that thing, that specific action, is precisely where your next level lives. The system is designed to keep you in comfortable avoidance. The algorithm serves you content that validates your current position. The culture celebrates busyness over effectiveness. The economy profits from your consumption, not your accumulation. Breaking free requires a conscious, almost violent commitment to doing what matters over what feels good. Let me leave you with this. In 2026 and beyond, the gap between those who understand the 1% rule and those who do not will widen into a chasm. Inflation will continue eroding the purchasing power of those who hold cash. The Federal Reserve will continue policies that inflate asset prices, rewarding those who own assets and punishing those who do not. The IRS will continue offering deductions and strategies that only benefit those who know to use them. The economy will continue rewarding leverage, systems, and asymmetric effort. You have a choice. You can continue doing what you have always done, consuming financial content without executing, understanding principles without applying them, knowing the path without walking it. Or you can commit today to identifying your 1% action and taking it before you close this video. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today, the wealthy are not smarter than you. They are simply less tolerant of their own excuses. My name is Godwin. This has been an examination of the 1% rule. If this perspective resonated, if you want more content built for those who refuse to remain average, subscribe now. Not because I need the numbers, but because surrounding yourself with this kind of thinking consistently is itself a 1% action. And those compound. I will see you in the next one.